The night's hall in New Austin hummed with an energy that made my quantum spurs spark against the polished floor. Hundreds of years of tradition weighed heavy in the air, along with the quiet whispers of assembled knights and the soft blue glow of quantum-enhanced weapons. I stood before them all, no longer the little boy who went by Dit because of his father's famous mount. Today, I was Dwight Williams, newly inducted Texas Knight, about to undertake the final trial of my training. My father, Major James Williams, sat in the front row. Shadow, his Dit Beast partner of 20 years, lay curled behind his chair, her crystalline fur throwing rainbow refractions across the hall's ancient wooden panels. 6 eyes tracked my every movement with an intelligence that still gave me chills even after all these years. Knight Initiate Williams, Grand Marshal Rodriguez's voice carried across the hall without need for amplification. You stand before us having completed all trials save one. The taming of a Dit Beast is not merely a test of skill or courage. It is a covenant between knight and beast, a bond that, once formed, lasts until death. I nodded, my hand instinctively reaching for a sword that wasn't there. Wouldn't be there until I returned, if I returned. The empty scabbard at my hip felt like a missing limb. The records show, Rodriguez continued, that of the last 100 knight initiates to undertake this trial, 32 did not return. 15 more returned without a Dit Beast, choosing to serve honorably in other capacities. He fixed me with a stern gaze. There is no shame in return without a bond. The shame lies only in treating these magnificent creatures as mere mounts to be broken. From the corner of my eye, I saw Shadow's fur ripple with approval, quantum energy dancing along her crystalline strands. My father stood then, power armor moving with the practiced grace of decades. In his hands he held our family's quantum-enhanced Bowie knife, its blade drinking in the light, just as it had done on old Earth, centuries ago. "Son," he said, his voice carrying that distinctive Williams drawl that had commanded Dit Beasts and soldiers alike. "This blade has been in our family since before we left Earth. It's tasted the blood of our enemies and carved paths through quantum storms." He held it out, handle first. "Now it's yours. Use it well. Use it wisely. And remember, a Dit Beast chooses its knight as much as we choose them." As I took the knife, its quantum matrix synchronized with my armor systems. Generations of memories flooded through me, battles won, friends lost, storms weathered, and among them all, the crystal-clear memory of my father bonding with Shadow, their energies aligning in that perfect moment of trust. "The beast you seek to bond with," an elderly knight spoke up from his wheelchair, "ain't just some animal. They're creatures of quantum energy, born in storms we barely understand. They can absorb your attacks, redirect your power, and leave you stranded in the wasteland of Nerith without a second thought." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled knights. Every one of them had faced that trial. Every one of them remembered. But the old knight's face cracked into a smile. "When you find the right one, when your energies align and that bond forms, ain't nothing in all the galaxies can match a knight and their Dit Beast riding through the quantum storms." As if in response, Shadow stood and padded forward, her massive form moving with impossible grace. She stopped before me, all 6 eyes glowing with ancient wisdom. Then, to everyone's surprise, she pressed her crystalline forehead against my chest. The hall fell silent. Even my father looked stunned. "Well," Grand Marshal Rodriguez said after a moment, "it seems Shadow believes in you, young Williams." He gestured to the great doors, which began to swing open. "Your transport to Nerith awaits. May the eyes of Texas be upon you." "The eyes of Texas are upon you," the assembled knights echoed, their voices filling the hall with centuries of tradition. As I turned to leave, my father caught my arm. "Dit," he said softly, using my childhood nickname. "Remember what I told you about how I found Shadow?" I nodded. It had been my favorite bedtime story. "Sometimes," he continued, "the hardest part ain't the tracking or the fighting. Sometimes the hardest part is knowing when to put down your weapon and trust." I glanced at Shadow, who was watching us with what I swore was amusement in her many eyes. "Yes, sir," I replied, squaring my shoulders. "I won't let you down." "Can't let me down, son," he smiled. "You've got Texas in your blood. Now go find yourself a partner worthy of carrying a knight." The great doors closed behind me with a sound like distant thunder. Ahead lay Nerith, its quantum storms and crystalline wastes calling to something deep in my soul. Somewhere out there, my dit beast was waiting, and I aimed to find it. The crystalline wastes of Nereth stretched before me like a sea of frozen starlight. My quantum spurs left traces of blue fire against the glittering ground as I tracked my way through the alien landscape. Above, 3 suns painted the sky in shades of crimson and gold, their light fracturing through the quantum storms that perpetually raged in the upper atmosphere. This was where dit beasts were born, where they evolved among the quantum crystals and energy storms, becoming something that even our most advanced scientists couldn't quite explain. I checked my armor's readings again. The quantum activity in this region was off the charts, exactly the kind of place a young dit beast might hunt. Their crystalline fur could absorb and redirect energy just like these formations, making them nearly invisible to normal sensors. A flash of movement caught my eye. Something large had just ducked behind a crystal spire, its wake disturbing the quantum field enough to register on my HUD. "Easy now," I whispered to myself, unconsciously mimicking my father's drawl. I drew the family knife slowly, its quantum matrix humming in harmony with my armor. The dit beast emerged from behind the crystal, and my breath caught in my throat. It was young, probably no more than a decade old, but already the size of a heavy warhorse. Its crystalline fur rippled like liquid starlight, and all 6 of its eyes fixed on me with predatory intelligence. "Well, aren't you something?" I breathed. The beast's fur pattern reminded me of the night sky over New Austin, deep and dark but spangled with points of light. It took a step toward me, head low, scanning my quantum signature. Dit beasts could sense the energy patterns of Knight's armor and weapons, using that information to judge us just as much as we judged them. A sudden surge in the quantum field was my only warning. Another dit beast, massive, battle-scarred, burst from hiding, charging straight at me. A rival hunter, protecting its territory. I rolled aside, power armor responding instantly to my movements. The family knife flashed out, its quantum edge leaving a trail of blue fire through the air. The big beast snarled, its own crystalline fur absorbing and redirecting the energy of my blade. "Sorry, partner," I told it, falling into a defensive stance, "but I ain't here for you." The younger dit beast watched our confrontation with all 6 eyes, its fur rippling with absorbed energy. I could almost swear it was studying my technique, judging how I handled myself. The big one charged again. This time I stood my ground, letting my quantum spurs flare. Blue fire traced patterns across the crystalline ground as I pivoted at the last second, using the beast's momentum against it. My knife traced a harmless but impressive arc of quantum energy across its flank. The elder dit beast pulled up short, all 6 eyes blinking in what might have been surprise. Then, with a sound like breaking crystal, it laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed off the crystal spires as it turned and loped away, apparently satisfied that I wasn't a threat to its territory. I turned back to find the younger beast had drawn closer, its fur now pulsing with gentle waves of quantum energy. Those star-speckled patterns in its coat seemed to shift and flow like a living nebula. "That's who I came to find," I said softly, realizing the truth of it in my bones. This wasn't just a dit beast, this was my dit beast. Everything in my training, everything in my blood told me this was the one. It took another step forward, then another. We began circling each other slowly, neither predator nor prey, but 2 warriors taking each other's measure. Its movements were poetry, its grace undeniable. Every shift of its crystalline fur scattered light like diamond dust in the alien air. Then it happened. The beast's front paw struck a crystal formation, shattering it. The explosion of quantum energy threw me backward, sending me tumbling toward a massive crystal spire. My armor screamed warnings as the quantum field intensified around me. I had a split second to make a choice. Fight or trust. The family knife felt heavy in my hand, as my father's words echoed in my mind. Sometimes the hardest part is knowing when to put down your weapon and trust. Time seemed to slow as I made my decision. After all, I had Texas in my blood. And Texas Knights had to earn their ride. In that crystalline canyon on Nereth, with quantum energy crackling all around me, I made my choice. The family knife clattered to the ground as I reached up and disengaged my helmet seals. My armor's warning system screamed at me. The quantum-charged atmosphere of Nereth wasn't meant for human lungs. But sometimes a knight had to trust more than technology. The dit beast froze, all 6 eyes fixed on my now exposed face. Its crystalline fur rippled with patterns I'd never seen before, waves of energy that seemed to match the beating of my heart. "My name's Dit," I said, letting my natural drawl come through. "Named after your kind, matter of fact. Been dreaming of this moment since I was knee-high to a grasshopper." The beast tilted its head, its star-speckled fur catching the light of 3 suns. I could feel the quantum energy building around us, could see the way its crystalline coat absorbed and redirected the power that should have killed me where I stood. "My daddy rode your kind into battle," I continued, taking a slow step forward. "His shadow's been family longer than I have. And if you're willing," I held out my hand, palm up, quantum spurs humming softly against the crystalline ground. "I'd be honored to be your partner." The Dit beast moved forward with liquid grace, each step precise and measured. Its 6 eyes studied me with an intelligence that seemed older than the stars themselves. Up close, I could see that what I'd thought were just sparkles in its fur were actually tiny galaxies swirling and dancing with each movement. It stopped just short of my outstretched hand. I could feel its breath, surprisingly warm, carrying the scent of quantum storms and crystalline forests. Time seemed to stretch like taffy as we regarded each other. Then, slowly, deliberately, it pressed its crystalline forehead against my palm. The universe exploded in my mind. I saw quantum storms from the inside, felt the joy of running through crystalline forests with energy crackling in my wake. I experienced the hunt through 6 eyes, felt the power of absorbing and redirecting pure quantum energy through crystalline fur. And underneath it all, I felt a loneliness, a desire for partnership that matched my own. When my vision cleared, my Dit beast, had its massive head rested against my chest, much like Shadow had done in the Knight's Hall. Its fur had synchronized with my armor's quantum field, creating patterns of energy I'd never seen before. "Starfire," I whispered, the name coming to me as naturally as breathing. "That's your name, ain't it? 'Cause your coat looks like the night sky over Texas." All 6 eyes blinked in agreement, and I felt rather than heard its approval rumble through my chest. The ride back to the transport was like nothing I'd ever experienced. Starfire moved through the quantum storms like they were gentle breezes, his crystalline fur protecting us both from the deadly energy. My quantum spurs left trails of blue fire that mixed with the energy streaming from his paws, creating patterns that would have made artists weep. 2 weeks later, we rode into New Austin together. My father was waiting at the gates, Shadow by his side. Both Dit beasts touched foreheads in greeting while my father looked on with pride. "Knew you had it in you, son," he said, his own quantum-enhanced blade humming at his hip. "Time to get you to the forge." The ancient forge of the Texas Knights lay deep beneath New Austin, where quantum energies ran like rivers through the bedrock. Master Smith Corbin, his arms marked with the distinctive burns of quantum forging, was waiting for us. "A knight needs a blade worthy of their Dit beast," he said, leading us to a workbench where a sword lay waiting. Its quantum matrix was fresh, eager to begin recording the stories it would one day tell. "This one's been singing for you since we started forging it." The blade seemed to hum as I picked it up, its quantum field synchronizing with both my armor and Starfire's natural energy field. It wasn't weighed down by generations of memories like my father's sword. This one was ready to write its own stories. "Every knight forges their own legacy," my father said, his hand resting on his own blade. "That's why we don't pass down our swords until we're ready to retire. Each blade carries its wielder's story, and your story's just beginning." "Come on," my father grinned, swinging up onto Shadow's back, his own blade catching the light. "Let's see what stories that sword of yours will tell." As we rode out into the Texas sunset, quantum spurs burning blue fire beneath us and Dit beasts moving like living starlight, I finally understood. Being a Texas knight wasn't just about the weapons or the armor or even the Dit beasts themselves. It was about writing your own legend while honoring those who rode before. It was about trust, about partnership, about earning your place in a legacy greater than yourself. Starfire's fur rippled with joy as we accelerated, keeping pace with my father and Shadow as naturally as breathing. Above us, the first stars were coming out over New Austin, matching the patterns in his crystalline coat. We had earned each other, just as every knight and Dit beast had done before us, and together we would write our own legends across the quantum storms. Because that's what Texas Knights do. That's what we've always done. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a like and to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Feel free to comment and share it as well. With all that said, go on and check out the video in the top left. I think you might like it.